Good morning, Dr. Arya.
Good morning, Dr. Hanscom.
I see you're up and at it and ready to go today. You seem like you've slept well.
I did, in fact, when I was rising this morning, I said how nice it is to breathe nice and easy. And then my thoughts invaded me.
Right. So this week we're going to talk about love. And you're going, well, what does love have to do with this? And it has everything.
Good song. It's a good song.
So here's the deal. So we all talk about love and we think about romantic love and all sorts of stuff. And what we have learned, there's a book called The Way to Love by Dr. Anthony DeMello, who's one of the most brilliant thinkers of all time. He has a little book of meditations that I have my fellows read, my staff has read, my administrators have read, my patients read. It's called The Way to Love. And he defines love as awareness. And by remaining aware of your needs, you can become aware of the needs of those around you, etc. The problem in chronic pain is that when you're trapped, you're angry, and anger and love cannot exist in the same room. You go, why? When I'm angry, I'm thinking really clearly, but you forget the thinking's about you. In other words, anger is your body's last ditch effort, hormonally, chemically, inflammatory wise, to regain control. So you're fired up, your brain has gone offline, the blood flow is shifted from the thinking centers to the survival centers. So anger is only about you. And awareness in relationships are about other people and you relating to them because you're aware of your needs and aware of their needs. So again, you're trapped in chronic pain, you're understandably angry and frustrated, and you might have been that way so long it seems normal, but anger destroys people and love heals.
Yeah. No, I think that's very powerful. I think when we are caught up in our raw emotions, we become very myopic and very, very narrow. And in that sense, we tend to just kind of take care of our needs.
Right.
And the danger with all of that is we want to send a clear message is that there's nothing wrong with the anger, depression, anxiety, all of that. That serves a purpose. However, what Dave and I were talking offline is that when any of our raw emotions, just our human emotions, tend to be dominant, it actually blinds you to anything and everything around you. And very often you cannot quite see how your actions actually damage and harm others, including your words. So it's almost like Dave and I were talking about how anger, let's just choose that, it's hard to love when you're caught up in your anger because it's kind of like this, as I was telling David, when you're in a cycle of anger, for example, you're in a cycle of drinking. It's identical to drinking. You're drunk in your raw, intense emotions, and it literally just shuts you down from the whole world. You cannot. If you did this for just a few seconds, the next time you're angry, if you just put this up, you cannot see beyond yourself. You cannot see beyond your needs. So it's all about you. So when someone is fired up and wired up, slip that in. When someone
How did I miss? You sabotaged me. It's been a couple of days since you came up with one of those.
I know, but I was trying to be gentle. It's we're getting to midweek, so I thought I'd get it wind up.
What was that lessism? If you're what?
If you're fired up and wired up,
Okay.
if you're fired up and wired up, what happens is this is a wall comes up and you cannot see beyond yourself. You cannot connect with people. It's hard to have a sense of compassion. And if we get even more technical from a physiological perspective, when you're so raw and you're angry and unforgiving, or just something about it, you just can't resentment. What happens is this is you're pulling up the wall, and what the wall is, you're in sympathetic. And when you're in sympathetic, it's all about scared and survival. But when you learn to attenuate, lower your nervous system, your survival mode, your fight or flight, when you lower it with the different interventions that Dave and I have been talking about, when you learn to lower it, what happens is you enter into a portal of self-compassion. And when you can learn to have some compassion and love for yourself, it's easier to love others genuinely.
Well, I always take one step further is that you may think you love other people, but when you're angry, it actually precludes love. I mean, you might manufacture feelings of love, etc. But I mean, think back when you first dated with your partner, spouse, whatever, or when your baby was first born, just an incredible amount of love that you felt. Okay, still there, but 5, 10, 15 years later, maybe you don't feel that quite so much. You may not feel it at all. And it's
Yeah.
because it isn't there, it gets blocked. So years ago, I belonged to a group called a Charter for Compassion, which had a mission of bringing compassion around the world. And I belonged to it for about a year and a half. And it hit me really hard. And of course, compassion and love are the same word. We know in the Bible, et cetera, that that's the same word. So I realized that, okay, you're compassionate with the compassionate cities, compassionate rallies, all sorts of stuff. But again, you have this conscious construct called love. You have this unconscious construct that just wipes it right out. So I go, well, wait a second. Love is a great idea, compassion is a great idea, but when you're triggered or angry, it goes right out the window. So that's when I started realizing, well, wait a second, for love and compassion to emerge, you got to somehow use the tools to separate from these circuits. And that's why we both talk about this a lot, is that anger and anxiety are necessary. They're normal. It's when you're in a prolonged state of anxiety and anger, it's a problem. And so what you're doing with the tools, you're separating from that energy, not trying to fix it or solve it or cure it, but you want to minimize your time in that state of mind, then you can thrive. If you're trying to thrive to counteract this negative energy, it's not going to work. So that's why it's such a clear picture for both of us that you got to use your tools to separate. And I think this little tool, putting your hands up in front of you, is a great tool. I've said little saying no action and a reaction. So the message today is mostly, I always wrote the first thing in my doc journey on the anger part of it is become an awareness. Is the first step is to become aware when you're unaware. And then awareness somehow starts to emerge. And there's lots of tools to create awareness, and that's what you do really well with your regulation and heart rate variability and autonomic nervous system. As you calm down the body's chemistry, your brain goes back online, you can think, you are aware, and love reemerges. You don't have to manufacture it, it's already there.
Yeah, David, I think we really just want to tie this in really strongly to let folks know this is it's, as you would say, it's nearly impossible when you're so angry and just so caught up in strong emotions for you to even have a form of love for others. Like it's like you said, it's hard to. And from a physiological perspective, I just want to kind of send out some compassion to others who are watching us and listening to us. That sometimes you're like, yeah, I know I do lose my cool. And we're not shaming or blaming anyone. What we just want you to know is this, is when we become very angry or caught up in our thoughts and emotions, is it's all about, you're in a survival mode. So I just want you to understand it's a physiological thing. It's not a psychological thing. It's a physiological thing. It's kind of like if you were drowning, where's love? You're like, I got to survive. You're trying to fight. In the same sense, that sense of drowning is happening in your brain, I didn't say mind, brain, and that activates your survival part. It's kind of like, what do I need to get out of here? So when someone's angry, they're really drunk. And another way of looking at that is they're kind of drowning and they don't quite care about anything else. However, as David said, when you do lower that nervous system down, when you lower that defensiveness down, that's when you start to feel safe. So you can look at this as love is a form of when you feel safe. So when you feel safe enough and you accept yourself, and yes, you've made mistakes, that's an important key point, that we all make mistakes. And the question is, can you die to your old self and let your new self be born? So when you lose your cool and you're kind of drunk and you cannot see beyond yourself, this is just an exercise to show you when you're drunk, you cannot see beyond yourself. It's all about you. But when you feel safe and learn to separate from your thoughts, as David said over and over again, there are different skills for that. And a great tool to start with that is just simply breath work and or mindfulness meditation, just learning to sit with what shows up. As David now, it's almost become David's saying now, is when you can learn to welcome the unwelcomed, because he uses it more than me, I do. And I really do want to commend you, David, because I don't think we talk enough about love and self-love, because I love what you said is, self-love is compassion. Ultimately is for you to be able to be the best you and to have a better mind and body, it requires you to invest in love or compassion in that sense.
So I'm going to try something different today. I'm going to have the last word, but I'm going to use your words. How's that?
I like it.
All right. So this is I'm just a ventriloquist right now for Dr. Arya, is that, we all get triggered every day, all day long. I'm not You do not want to suppress the triggers. Anger is fine. Anxiety is fine. It's just you have to be aware when you're unaware. So the question, the quote from Dr. Ari is, how do you want to show up today? And take it down even further. How do I want to show up this very minute when things are difficult? So in difficult times, what part of you wants to show up? Because that's who you are, unfortunately, is when it's easy, it's easy. But when it's tough, who do you want to show up? Which part of you do you want to show up? How did I do? All right. Excellent. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, everyone, have a great day.